and are you still not subscribed to Matt's channel? Well, if you're not, hit the subscribe button because he's giving out free picks each and every week. Hope you have a good rest of your day.
UFC Vegas 97 back at the Apex for Brady versus Burns on the week of the return of the NFL. What a time of the year, guys. We got a game Thursday, Ravens versus Chiefs, huge game. Game Friday, special game international in Brazil, Eagles versus Packers. We got UFC Saturday, which we're going to talk about here shortly, and then Sunday, NFL all day. You can't ask for a much. Oh, let me add the Monday too. Monday Night Football as well, right? What an exciting time. And that means it's the best time to get on board with the system. Always a good time to be on board with the system. But if you like volume, this is the best time. Head over to systemsportscapping.com or link.me/systemcapping. Receive my personal plays. Once I bet them, join the worldwide client email list now. Detailed write-ups, full unit prices, reason, books, etc. Doing this early morning Thursday. I'm actually doing this. Got the coffee ready to go. Obviously, you guys know I'm a Ravens fan. So it's a big day today for me, so I thought I'd get this out of the way. UFC runs, let's give you guys an update here. We had a week off last week. UFC run 26-5, pay-per-view run 84%. That's almost a full year, guys. Almost a full year. 47-24, all cards, 67%. I'm happy with that. 70% 2-5 parlays, a little longer term. That's 2023 and 2024 total. 70% 2-fight parlays. Average line plus money, guys. Keep that in mind. Shout out to all the podcast listeners on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. And, of course, you video viewers on YouTube. New setup here. Actually had a light go out. So I'm just using the standard office studio light that I have here. I got to get some new lights. So always looking to improve the setup and everything. So look out for that week by week. Also a big shout out to all the long-term clients and obviously the new ones that come on board for the NFL season. I always see an uptick in subscriptions, of course. Best way to help me out, best way to allow me to continue to do this. I love doing this no matter what. We've been doing it for 6 years now on the podcast realm, and 4 years now. This is going to be the 4th year for client subscriptions. You'll hear from me twice a week now. Twice a week, guys. NFL is back, so you'll see a video and podcast out tomorrow. So look out for that. Like always, it will be available in audio and video on all major platforms. All right, housekeeping is out of the way. Let's get right into this card, guys. Shop around, right? Shop around. Have multiple books. Can't stress that enough. Get the best price out there. Go look at yourself, right? Go see how they do vary from book to book, the pricing and props, etc. Main event, Burns, plus 162 versus Brady, minus 188. I believe Brady should be the favorite in this fight. I had this maybe more of a shorter line, minus 150, because we haven't seen Brady prove he can beat competition at this level and shine in a bright spot as a main event 5-round fight. Right, if you look at these two fights, they're very similar, right? They're very similar, these two fighters, right? Both really good grapplers. They can wrestle. Striking isn't there, right? It's not their bread and butter. But both very high-level grapplers and wrestlers. So it's going to be interesting when we usually see that you could see it playing out on the feet. Even though I'll talk about it here shortly, I do think Brady does have a wrestling and strength advantage. I think that's where he can take advantage of Burns. Right? Both very low-level striking on the feet. Right? Both around 3.5 significant strikes landed per minute. That's more to the lower side. Right? Both guys obviously look for takedowns and to grapple, and that's why you see those lower numbers. Will that happen here, though? Like I mentioned, when you have two really good grapplers, you see striking for the most part. But does Brady, as a favorite, does he want to keep it on the feet? No, I think he could use his wrestling. use his wrestling, right? He averages and leads the way at 3 per fight, Brady. And I think that's where he's best, right? And we saw last time against, last time out, when he just dominated his opponent, Gastelum, who was a lot weaker in there, not as good as a grappler. And I can't compare Burns to Gastelum. Remember, Gastelum came down also in weight, so I can't compare that with Burns. However, we saw how dominant Brady can be in that grappling department. Burns, 38 now. Keep that in mind, guys. 38, right? Coming off back-to-back losses, which isn't something I like to bet on, even though I believe there is some value here at the price. At plus 162, shop around, you maybe even find a steeper price. Those losses, though, against, good guys. Bilal, Muhammad, the current champ. So no surprise there. And then Jack Maddalena, right? Finished him in the third round. That's a little bit concerning. Tough knee he took. How is that going to carry over? How is he going to adapt? Tough loss, tough way to finish. He looked okay at times in that fight as well, Burns. Keep that in mind, guys, remember? But Jack was able to show why he could be the next challenger for the belt. He's not far off, maybe one more big win from Jack. Burns, similar situation here, right? From the Jack fight, getting that next up-and-comer, riser in the division, and Brady, right? Who also has that loss to Bilal, right? So now that Bilal loss doesn't look as bad, right, on Brady. At the time, a lot of people are saying, oh, Brady's not as good as he was, as he was supposed to be. Maybe the hype is gone, but Bilal is showing he's just running through the division, guys. Right, so that loss was not too bad. Now he's come back against Gastelum, dominated him there, got that third round submission. I do give Burns a slight striking advantage. It's not going to be huge, though. But he's been there with the better strikers, the better guys in his career, Burns. So I do give him that. Is he going to be faster? Probably not. I do think he has some hands to kind of hurt Brady. We've seen Bilal hurt him on the feet. So that is possible. But I do believe, the later this fight goes, I think it's advantage Brady. I think he has a cardio advantage here. I think he has a wrestling advantage, and he's going to have a strength advantage. Grappling, I know he's good. I think it cancels out. I think they're both really good grapplers. But when you have that strength advantage and that wrestling advantage, I think you got to do a slight lean to Brady there. Right? We've seen Brady fall in the big spot before, right, against Bilal. However, I talked about Bilal and how he's the real deal champion now in this division. So I'm not going to fault Brady too much on that loss. Not going to fault him too much. Right? Like I mentioned at the top of this breakdown, I have Brady as a similar fighter to Burns. They're very similar in their skill set, right? Just younger, stronger. So I would have to lean Brady's way here because of that. I'm not in love with it, not in love with the price. I see pass for Burns to win this fight. So I'm not in love with Brady here, but I do lean Brady here. Hasn't made my client card as of yet. It could. We've seen Burns, obviously the age, the back-to-back losses. I've seen some interviews this week about him talking about doing BJJ tournaments. Let's also look at Burns' recent wins, guys. When he steps up in competition, we know he loses. But look at his wins. Neil Magny and Jorge Masvidal, guys, are his recent wins, right? Nothing really to talk about there. No big-time wins from Burns as of late, I do have to mention. I also like how confident Brady seems. Brady called for this fight, guys. He called out Gilbert Burns. So he sees something. Right? And we know where Brady can use that wrestling. And, Burns' takedown defense has been spotty at times throughout his career. Risk here, of course. I don't love the price, but Brady will be the bet here. Can he prove it? Right? He still has to prove it at this top level. Or is Brady just that mid-tier good guy that's scary to fight because of his wrestling and grappling, and he's never going to be able to get to that title shot? Time will tell, but I do think he gets it done against Burns here. Take a look at Brady. Shop around, try to get the best price. Andrade, plus 240 versus Silva, minus 300. Coffee time. Interesting price here, guys. It's a younger, impressive Silva versus the vet in Andrade. Similar to the fight that we just talked about. in that aspect of it. Silva's undefeated in the UFC 5-0 and hasn't lost a fight since 2017. Andrade seemed to find something as of late, right? She went on that 3-fight losing streak and then won back-to-back fights versus Dern and Rodriguez. Rodriguez's fight was close. Obviously, Dern, she was going to beat on the feet. She was able to do so. Striking numbers from a volume standpoint favors Andrade at over 6 compared to Silva's 4.5. However, I do have to mention Silva should be the cleaner striker in there, faster and quicker. Right? Very good striker, Silva. Definitely worth mentioning here. Andrade also owns the takedown numbers, right? So if you are looking at just stats here and you see plus 240 Andrade, I don't call you crazy if you're going to take a shot here, even though I do think Silva is the rightful favorite here and should get the fight done. This is also Silva's toughest test yet. I do have to mention that, right? So this price to me is not accurate at minus 300. I get the books are high on him and I get the UFC's high on her. You want that fresh face in the division, right? To challenge for the title. And this is a good shot here for Silva. I have a hard time betting at minus 300. Very difficult. Even if I find into 2-fight parlay, there's still some risk that Andrade wins this fight, guys. So I don't call you crazy if you're putting a small unit on Andrade to win this fight. I definitely don't call you crazy, right? It's just sometimes you have to look at pricing and odds to win. I have Silva more maybe as a 2-1 favorite. It's just a big gap here, right? Big gap. We haven't seen Silva do it against this type of competition yet. Right? Outside of the ring, both are going through it. This is worth mentioning as well. Andrade's manager stole some money from her, suing, I think it was around $2 million I'm hearing. So there's a lawsuit there. Silva's sister apparently passed away recently. So, she could be definitely fighting for her Saturday. Keep that in mind. So that's something, sometimes there's fighters or teams that are playing or fighting for something that really does factor into my handicap. That is something there. I also believe Andrade is better at 115. Guys, keep in mind this fight's at 125. Both those wins, Andrade won against Dern and Rodriguez was at 115. Keep that in mind. This is 125. Silva will be the bigger girl in there. Okay? So that's why I'm liking Silva, just not liking the price here. Liking Silva, not liking the price. If you can fit her in somewhere. And it is tough to call an outcome here. I'm obviously very good at calling outcomes. I have a long history of doing so. It's tough here. I obviously lean the decision, but we've seen Andrade hurt multiple times. Silva has some power on the feet. Could finish her. Right? We can see Andrade coming forward, fighting sloppy. We've seen that at times. And Silva could find a finish. So even though I do lean the decision, I can see Andrade going for it and Silva catching her at some point. Garcia Jr. minus 175 versus Nelson plus 150. The parlay killer Kyle Nelson is back and coming into this fight on a 3-fight win streak, guys. And he won every time as an underdog. Underdog again here. There's no surprise in underdog. I understand the matchup with Garcia could be a little tough due to that KO specialist, KO power, 13 wins by KO. And he hasn't been out of the second round, guys. Now, if Nelson could prolong this fight, he can fight smart as he does have, I wouldn't say durability concerns, but we've seen him rocked sometimes. He's been KO'd twice in his career. Garcia has that power that I don't think Nelson may have felt before, right? Garcia touches you, you're pretty much down. If you look at Garcia, nothing's really technical. He's not really great at anything. He's great at finding your chin with some power. But overall skill set, not great anywhere, right? If Nelson could prolong this fight, make it ugly, get against the cage, try to get this fight down to the ground, he has a shot to win this fight, right? Garcia has the advantages in all stats, though. If you look at the numbers-wise, which is not something you can just look at, but it is something to look at each handicap. Look at the numbers, look at the stats, striking volume, power, takedown defense. That's why Garcia's takedown defense is 88% is very impressive. So that's why I think Nelson could be in trouble here if he can't get this fight down on the ground. If he's just taking big shots from Garcia, it's tough, right? It's tough. Right? Even Garcia can use his own takedowns as well if he wants to get there, averaging over 1.2 per fight. But like I mentioned, if Nelson can make this ugly, avoid the big shot, he has a shot to win this if he can prolong this fight into the second and third round. We haven't seen Garcia outside of the second round before. A lot of ifs and buts, right? So is plus 150 enough? I would say no to take a shot there. Am I betting this fight for clients? No. Even though I'm leaning Garcia Jr. here. And you would probably want to take him by finish to improve that price. Get that plus money price for Garcia to finish the fight. We haven't seen him out the second round. So if he wins this fight, it's going to be by finish. Chanel plus 250 versus Durden minus 334. A lot of head-scratching prices on this card this week, guys. This is another one. Right? Again, I do my own numbers coming in. I had this Durden. I think Durden should be favored, but there's a lot of questions around Durden. For you guys that don't know, he's taking this on short notice. Right? Obviously, Durden's going to have the big wrestling advantage here, and I think that's why, right? Chanel's 50% takedown defense, and Durden averages over 4 takedowns per fight. I get it, right? Durden minus 250, but the short notice, I hear he's not going to have a coach. This fight's at 135, not 125. There's a lot of things here. There's a lot of things here to avoid betting a minus 334 price tag on. And this is a clear example of that, right? People that are betting Matt Schnell plus 250, I wouldn't call you crazy. I would say I would see crazier things. Now, Matt Schnell is not a guy I like to bet on, guys, so let's be honest, right? He's not a guy that you want to bet on. And this is not a great matchup for him. Like, let's say this was not a short notice fight. Yeah, I probably would be a lot more confident on Durden, but the price would probably be even bigger. Right? Is Durden that good? Guys, he's lost back-to-back fights. So you just cannot bet this at minus 334. It's crazy. It's crazy. Even though I think he has a lot of paths to win this fight, but how's his cardio? We don't know. What if he gets takedowns, gasses, Schnell gets up, catches him? There's a lot of scenarios here that could happen, right? A lot of scenarios. So definitely stay away from this one. If you're betting Durden at this price, I don't know. I don't know why, but it's just too many scenarios here in this fight. Schnell backers plus 250. It's scary. It's very scary. Schnell's not a guy I like to bet on, but I wouldn't call you crazy due to the circumstances around this fight. Trevor Peek is back. Obviously, always like watching a Trevor Peek fight. Minus 125 versus Ashimo's plus 100. I love watching Peek fight. Likes to come forward, can take shots. Fun bar fight type of style, right? But he also has some good MMA mixed martial arts skills, guys. This is very up and down, right? When you're going to fight like that, you're going to be up and down. You're going to get caught. You're going to lose fights due to the other guy maybe having a little better skill set, maybe better grappling, wrestling. Just very up and down in the UFC at 2-2 so far for Peek. The trend continues, though. It's win one, lose one. He lost his last one. Hey, looks like he could win this one here if that trend does continue. Ashimo's is 1-1 in the UFC. Lost to a tough Chris Duncan last time out, but he has a very good win over Sam Patterson. That's something to mention, and he was able to catch him. Ashimo's has some power on the feet. Doesn't have that grappling and wrestling that should scare Peek or give Peek a lot of problems, so that's worth mentioning here. And we know Peek can take a shot. So Ashimo's likes to win fights by catching the other opponent with some heavy hands, but Peek can take that. He's very durable. So that's why I think Peek is favored here, and that's why I'm going to look at Peek's side for podcast purposes. Stats-wise, Peek wins in both striking and grappling areas as well. If you like to look at the stats, going to have the cardio advantage as well, I do believe, and he can take punishment like no other. Keep in mind, Ashimo's has a nice win in his debut like Patterson, which I mentioned at the top. That's a very impressive win over Patterson. And if he does catch Peek, anyone could go down. Even though I mentioned Peek's very durable, but Ashimo's, Peek's going to have to watch that heavy hands from him, because Peek, obviously, his defense is questionable. He knows he can take a hit, but sometimes if you get too confident that he can take a hit, watch out. Watch out, right? Not a fight I'll be betting, but for video and podcast purposes, I'll be on the Peek side. low cost, right? Minus 125 and 120 around the market. Rong Zhu minus 225 versus Padilla plus 187. Rong is from he's an interesting career, Rong. Very interesting. Only 24. He's been to the UFC, had multiple fights in the UFC, been cut, went back to the road to the UFC to get back into the UFC. Hats off to the guy, right? He loves this. And he also has a ton of amateur fights. Padilla only 1-0 in the UFC, finding submission in round 1 versus a lower level guy, even though he was a big underdog in that fight. He was a big underdog, found a first round submission. Keep that in mind, guys. So, a lot of people aren't high on the guy. The books aren't high on him. But that's something worth mentioning. And again, he's an underdog here as well. Smaller than the last fight. Wong has took the long and tough path. I love that, right? I love seeing that. Right? He has power, volume on the feet. He can knock you out. We've seen him multiple times on tape. Good mix, and he has solid takedown defense at 85%. Right? Minus 225, not something, I've seen him lose. He has 5 losses, right, too. He's very... He is beatable. A minus 225 is hard to get out. I just love the path. I love his current streak. It's just, there's obviously some concerns. And obviously, minus 225, when you have multiple concerns, it's tough to back here. But I am going to back the Chinese fighter here. I just love the experience from him through the amateurs. He was in the UFC at around 21, got cut, went back through the hard road. He took the hard road, guys. I love that. So take a look at the Chinese fighter here. Tough to call an outcome, right? Maybe lean a finish, get that better price. That will do it, guys. That will do. You will see me tomorrow for the NFL. I'll be breaking down a few games, talk some favorite teasers, some favorite underdogs, like I always do. So definitely don't miss that. We got the Sphere card next week. Can't wait for that. I'll be breaking that down. Don't miss it. Like I always say, guys, bet smart and know your limits. Enjoy this card.